Hello, everyone. This is Wilson Casado, changing the game. So we're here today again for a new episode of it. So I have my good friend Royce Crown here today with us. So welcome to the show, Royce.
Thanks for having me, Wilson. Really appreciate it.
So I'll make a quick introduction of Royce. So I was reading some stuff about him, and I found it fascinating. So look, Royce is everything you can call an entrepreneur. Right, he mentioned that when he was 5, he started this string of lemonades and Kool-Aids and food stands with 8 other kids, and doing business in the streets. Then at the age of 19, Royce had his first food truck that quickly grew to 5 food trucks. And he transitioned from food carts in New York, London, France, Spain, New Zealand to helicopter transport. So a little bit of very flash life when he got his helicopter license and he started doing transport between land and large yachts in the Mediterranean. So pretty cool. Just thinking about that, that's pretty cool. So it doesn't stop there. Royce came to Australia in 2012. He started another food company, bread and meat company, grew food trucks, shops, Melbourne, Brisbane, but he ended up finding that, hospitality, the passion for hospitality was not as strong as the passion for aviation. That's when Monarch starts. So, Royce, I will stop here. And I'll ask you a little bit more, can you share a little bit more about yourself? And then, what is Monarch? Talk about it with us.
Yeah, well, thanks for the introduction. Entrepreneurship started at a very young age for me. I kind of grew up in a household with, leaders. So my dad was, on the board of Publishing and Broadcasting Limited. He owned his own restaurants and hotels. So it was instilled in me at a young age to, essentially build that entrepreneurial spirit. Like you said, at 5, I had a conglomerate of lemonade and Kool-Aid stands in the neighborhood. I paid my friends 25 cents an hour, and I essentially charged 50 cents a cup. So I was pretty profitable in that, and kind of just stemmed from there. But I've always had a passion for hospitality, and I grew up in that industry, so it was something I really truly enjoyed. And I got my pilot's license when I was 18, and I got it on a bet with my dad. My dad didn't think colorblind people could get a pilot's license, and I was watching a game show called Jeopardy a couple days prior, and that was the question that was essentially debunked. So I actually knew the answer, and I just was cheeky and said, "Well, if I could pass my eye exam for my pilot's license, would you pay for my course?" And he accepted. So I went in and passed my eye exam, so he had to pay for my commercial helicopter license, and didn't really think I was going to do much with it. But it just turned out that I was in the Mediterranean. I was applying as a deckhand on a mega yacht, and they needed a pilot. And I just quickly went and got my endorsement in the helicopter, and ended up my first paying job was flying rich and famous people to and from mega yachts in the Mediterranean, and and then I wanted to get endorsed in more helicopter models, so I ended up volunteering with Doctors Without Borders, WHO, in Africa. For 5 years, I pretty much did season on season. So, dry season in the Mediterranean, wet season in Africa. So, they were really, really interesting, really, great work. But, again, sometimes you want to, sometimes just put some roots down and kind of, live a different type of life. So I came out to Australia in 2012 and started off with the restaurants, and really all means to an end. I always had a plan to build what I wanted to build when it came down to software, hence the beginning of Monarch. So Monarch is the software that we provide to aircraft charter operators to automate the pricing. And with the ability to automate their pricing and their schedule, we can now externalize that into places where most people go to view their flight options. And at the moment, they don't have the option of charter because it's not automated. So that's been our number one goal for the past half a decade, was to build that software system for charter operators, and then the ability to expose that to everybody. So everybody can see charter in comparison with commercial, make a decision for themselves. It might be a couple $100 more per person, but at the end of the day, the safety of your family or the the benefits of leaving when you want to, coming back when you want to, not being in a crowded airport, not being on a crowded airplane, all of these benefits for maybe $150 or $200 more per person might be that situation where somebody decides to give it a shot and have that experience of what private is all about. It's not as expensive as it once was back in the 1980s and 90s, which is what people usually see is only for the rich and famous. But things have changed, and it's now accessible to more people and a lot more expensive.
So I find it fantastic, man. So, well, look, if I come back to the beginning of what you're saying, you're talking about your dad, and the fact that your dad did, himself was an entrepreneur. So the other day we were talking about the fact that some people are crazy enough to see how crazy the life of entrepreneur is when observing the dads and moms, and then decide to do the same. So.
Yeah,
to a good extent, that is insane, Royce.
Yeah, well, I think it's so true because it's really what you grow up, and part of it was because I wanted to be like my dad, but the other part is that I wanted to do things differently to him. So, whereas my dad was second generation and essentially had it, that company handed down to him from his father, naturally you'd think that I would want to be the third generation and have a big company, worth already millions of dollars handed down to me. But the opposite happened, actually. The opposite was I loved the way that he lived his life and I loved his entrepreneurship, but I wanted to do it on my own merit without having a handout. And that was, both interesting and complicated when it comes down to a family dynamic. So, yeah.
So you mentioned that you have a very international background. So where were you born, Royce?
So I was born in Canada. I did live in Australia from 3 till 7. So I was an only adopted child in my family. So I came out to Australia when I was 3. I was here till 7. We moved back to Canada, and I was there until I was 18. Started university, and I went to the U.S. And London for uni.
So where did passion for aviation come from?
Well, it kind of came out of nowhere. Like I said, it started with a simple bet with my dad. I heard him and his buddy talking about how colorblind people couldn't fly. Be a pilot. I always had an interest in flying. Pilots back in the 80s and 90s were probably the most glorified positions, especially in North America. Anybody who's watched the movie Catch Me If You Can would understand that. So there was always an interest there, but it was only until I actually got into a cockpit where things started to change. Once you've experienced handling a vehicle that you wouldn't assume by its natural shape could take flight, that's an experience that's just worth having. And it only takes 10 minutes in a helicopter to know you want to be in that, consistently. So, it kind of just, a seed was dropped and then, grew into an extreme passion. Yeah.
Interesting. So I did share. I think I did share with you earlier that I was. That's one of my passions as well. So my passion comes more from that sort of young, naive sort of mind of watching Top Gun,
Yeah.
and thinking that you can be a fighter pilot.
Yeah.
So that actually took me to the Brazilian Air Force. So I actually went to the Air Force Academy and I learned how to fly, and I got my private license, but that was a long time ago. So the life took me in different, directions, I guess. But that makes me very interested about your journey and about your venture. So, look, I know you have that sort of background, Canada and US. So I come from Brazil. So we live in countries that, traffic congestion is pretty clear, a big drama. So not as much in Australia. So, but then you mentioned that you start thinking about, looking at congestion at M1 and 3 and say, well, we can make this more popular in the Gold Coast. So how that conversation has been?
Yeah, well, that was pretty much the first rendition of what Monarch was. I wanted to test the market and see what was required. The unique part about Australia is that all the major cities are, pretty much spread apart in a very equal way. So, that teamed up with, Sydney, Melbourne, which was the third highest flown corridor in the world for some time. A lot of major airlines born right here in Brisbane. You got Set, Qantas, I mean, it's almost like an unspoken, testing ground for aviation. But the earlier rendition of Monarch was first to be a helicopter airline and to relieve the traffic in the M1. So, where we had people spending an hour and a half, 2 hours with congestion, sometimes more, each direction, to go to work. They live in the Gold Coast, they work in Brisbane, or vice versa. I mean, it was, I just didn't see the reason a flight, in a helicopter, even an R-44, would only be about 15 to 20.
So I'll make a comment because at this moment, Royce, you a bit of a cut your sign. So you come back. So everyone, this is a demonstration of real entrepreneurship, I guess. So Royce is in between jobs in his business, and we're talking with him while he has a ride in his car. So let's see whether he comes back.
Sorry about that. I made it back.
So I think you're back. So
yes, I apologize. My apologies.
Oh, look, I was making a comment here that's actually bring entrepreneurship to reality, seeing you, as potentially in between jobs and going around to do the business you need to do. So, and do the interview in the between. That's what it is.
No, that's the thing. Like we grind it out. We do a little guerrilla style marketing. We do a lot of in-store visits. So we had some meetings with some operators in New South Wales. It literally me and Adam. We started driving at 11 p.m. on Tuesday so that we can make a meeting in Scone, New South Wales by 9:30 a.m. So it was 48 hours. We only got 1 hour of sleep. And that was just us driving.
Very
and
good.
then we spent the whole day talking to operators that day. And so we really do everything that's needed in order to make sure it's the same. Yeah, if you want me to pick up, I think I was talking about the helicopter. From the M1, and how it was funny that they had a hard time getting the memberships, and they're talking to the wives of the executive at home 2.5 hours earlier every day or so. And we saw some success line, and we were flying pretty much 4 flights consistently every morning and 4 flights consistently every evening for those return legs. But that was really the pivotal point for us. It highlighted an extreme big hole in the charter industry globally. And no business, I guess, in aggregation or even brokering was going to be successful until that, big gaping hole was solved. So we took it upon ourselves to solve it. And it's been 5 years, but we've done an amazing job. And I think right now is the perfect time for us to launch our product in a big way. And operators are really taking to it, with an extreme accurate pricing tool and the ability to externalize that. And we've got some really exciting announcements to make in the very near future. But we may talk about that later. Thanks.
Very good. So tell me one thing, Royce. So private jetting is still still seeing that sort of top end of town, rich people and etc. So is the movement that you're being part of going to make private jetting something that I can be part of, that someone else can be part of? So how much this will be accessible?
Yeah, well, we plan on making private aircraft in general accessible to everybody in a big way. And I think it's, pricing is always going to be the biggest consideration, and what people probably fear most about private aircraft, especially jets. Like I said, it's really just the perception that they get from movies, TVs, or anything that private jets are really just for the high net worth or rich individual with their family. But in actuality, there are many parts of a private jet flight which are extremely affordable to even an economy, even in comparison to economy seat price as a straight charter. So you just want to fly from A to B one way. If it's for two people and you're looking at an experience, most people will look at a 14-passenger jet, and of course, a 14-passenger jet for two people is going to be extremely overpriced for two people when you break it down by a two-person, on a 14-passenger jet. But there are jets out there that are 4-passenger jets. There are jets out there. There are single-engine aircraft. There are turboprops. All of these actually run at a very lower rate. So really, it's just are they looking for cost savings, or are they looking for, like I said, the ability just to not be in a crowded airport? And there are answers to all of those questions within the private aviation sector. So, one example I give you was, we had a client, a high net worth individual client, who chartered an aircraft from Sydney to Gold Coast. He paid the rate for the full aircraft for him and three of his family members. He'd flown, and then getting the aircraft back to Sydney, we were able to get 12 backpackers on there for $135 per seat. The reason that was, the reason we were able to do that was because the initial charter had chartered an aircraft to get from A to B. We still have to get that aircraft from B back to A, which opens up what's called a redirection flight or an empty leg flight. And that is essentially just a little cream on top for the operator. So the operator has already essentially covered all costs with that one-way flight for the aircraft, pilots, everything is covered. So getting that aircraft back has already been paid for. So by releasing it for a very small premium, and that's really just to cover the weight distribution and the additional fuel that would be needed in order to fly that aircraft with, that much weight as in 14 passengers, that's where the additional cost comes from. But, essentially it opens up capabilities. A single engine, for instance, from, Victoria to say Albury, that could be under $1,000. We were just talking to an operator, one of our partner operators in Mackay, and he's flying to Hamilton Island and to another island, where his aircraft for two people, $600 each way, or $600 for a one-way, $620 for a return. So it's not that expensive, and especially out in Mackay or those regional areas, sometimes that's the only way to travel, but it's not as expensive as people would assume, which is why it's our job to make sure that we can get that automation in pricing, automation in schedule, and then put it up right next to what people would normally see, like a Qantas or Virgin, and then have a private option and show them that, it may be $50 more, it may be, $100 less. You just don't know unless you can see it. And if you can't see it, then you can't make that decision. So, that's what we're aiming to do. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to do more trips in private jets, I guess. So, Royce, in terms of your venture itself, so how has been your journey of being an entrepreneur in Australia?
Yeah, well, Australia is a tough market. So Australia is great for testing a concept, especially for us. Like I said, the major cities are a nice separation. They're pretty much an hour to an hour and 10-minute flight. So, really, really good in that aspect. Good range of aircraft for our particular model. I think the biggest hindrance has probably been about funding. Funding has been extremely difficult in Australia in comparison to venture or funding capabilities. My history will even show that. When I did the food trucks at 19 years of age, it was really a drawing on a napkin, and I was able to secure a couple
I'm going to ask a question. I'm assuming that you can hear me. So you did mention about funding. So can you elaborate more the significance of funding in Australia for you to start Monarch business and how that has been helping?
Sorry, Wilson again. Yeah, we keep getting cut out.
No dramas at all. So
No.
will be fun to
Yeah,
edit this. It will be fun to edit this video, this audio.
yeah, yeah. No worries.
Did
I'll
you
just
get
kind
my
of
question about funding?
yeah. So I'd say funding's probably been the hardest part about having a startup or doing a venture here in Australia. We've been successful with angel groups. And those are angel groups from Byron Bay, all the way down to Rockhampton, and then even over to the Perth side of things. So we've been able to raise a little bit of money there. But the hard part is it's an extremely conservative institutional investment scenario here in Australia. The VCs or family funds are they scrutinize everything, and so even as something as they would choose a social good enterprise over a money making business sometimes just to increase their portfolio for the PR. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's difficult, especially being North American myself. I know how easy it is to raise money in the U.S., being in the U.S. or even in Canada. But it's a you take a business like ours, for instance, and like I said, it's a $1.1 trillion market. It's a massive opportunity, first movers in automation technology. Really the first to do it. Aggregation numbers, that have grown over a pandemic. A war in Afghanistan. Being able to do cargo as easily as we do business. Business travel and calculations of those aircraft. We've proven ourselves over the last 5 years to withstand during those periods, but still, like to get institutional Australian investment, we'll have a company that deals in recycling bottles and reusing them for laundry that'll get a $5 million check, but we won't get that, because it's not a social good kind of business. And again, it's really the understanding of charter as a market. So in the US they get charter. Here in Australia they can't separate charter from scheduled services. Like if we were in a airline scheduled service technology, we probably would have raised $20 million by now. But because we're in charter and it's less known to people, it's almost something that they just don't understand. We find that we always hit kind of roadblocks in trying to explain it. The simplest thing that we say is that you have two sides to aviation. You have scheduled services, non-scheduled services.
Yep.
Scheduled services are very easy to calculate. We've got to do the hard work of calculating any time of day, any origin, any destination, any amount of people or cargo, and be able to calculate those prices in a sub-second, and that's difficult. So that's kind of I'll leave it at that, I guess.
So Royce, do you think that's going to change? The other day, both of us were talking with another entrepreneur. He's actually talking about creating new aircrafts, which is full by sustainable energy, is no unmanned. We don't have a pilot, and we potentially be able to transport 2 to 4 people, sort of thing. Do you think that's realistic that the industry will change for that sort of air travel? We lost Royce again, but I'll ask that question again when he's back.
Yeah, listen, I think all of that stuff is great. Got you still, or have I lost you? Nope. Can you hear me,
I can. You
Wilson?
came back now. So did you hear my question about different air travel options?
I did, and those options are all they're exciting options. There's Beetle aircraft that are energy, powered by electricity. There's unmanned aircraft. All of these are really exciting, exciting new innovations and whatnot. And we, when it comes down to our business, we've had to forward think that way as well. So, we built a calculating platform which is already covered for all the future potential, fuels that we could look at in order to make sure that our enterprise product is, the one that's going to be used even for future stuff. But a lot of that stuff's going to take a lot of time to implement. Even if we could, it said have the Beetle aircraft built and able to run by tomorrow, there's still 4 or 5 years of implemented it. The scary part is that our kids will love it. But anybody our age, to get into an aircraft without a pilot would be extremely scary. So, I think they do have a bit of a market problem as well because it's like Tesla, I guess. There was very few people that picked up Tesla in the early days because it was an autonomous driving vehicle. To not put your hands on a steering wheel while driving a car is a foreign concept to us all.
Yeah.
I think the other side of things is, like I said, our kids growing up with it. It's like, look at our kids now. You, myself, even Adam in the car here, we grew up without computers. Or unlike computers that they are today. We didn't have mobile phones. We waited, 4 or 5 hours for the girlfriends to give us a call after we asked them on a date right by a hard line. Now you can just send a quick text. But our kids have grown up with computers, and it's changed everything. Now, schools are requiring for you to have an iPad, and things of that nature. So, our kids will love autonomous vehicles or Beetle aircraft. I think I would still be pretty scared to be in an aircraft that flew itself. But, the future is the future, and it's just making sure that you are future protecting your own business and knowing what's out there and what's coming.
So you touch a very nice point. So you start talking about the kids and the way that growing up different, etc. So I'd like to ask you a question about education. So is two questions together. So one is, what is that you see that in your own education that helped to transform you in this entrepreneur? And what do you think needs to change in the traditional education for the kids to be more entrepreneurial?
Yeah, those are actually really good questions. I've got a very unique education, I guess. Again, my dad was, I guess, an entrepreneur of his own kind, second generation, and he already had, some pretty successful corporate businesses. So I think it was pretty much instilled in me from early age that education is extremely important. To the point where I went to an Ivy League, university. So, but I didn't study what I do. But it does play a part in it. I studied international finance. Which is really got little to do with flying aircraft, but at the same time, from the business aspect of it, it's extremely important that I have that education to know where markets are playing up in the near future, or during things like the pandemic, and how to adjust the business to fit those financial markets is always important as well. But again, practicality and schooling is. I know that TAFE in Australia probably does a very good job in that, where it's not just in classroom learning; it's actually in classroom learning with practical work experience. And I think pilot training is exactly the same way. I don't think I know. You basically have your in-room testing and flight briefs, but then you have your practical get into the aircraft and get it done. North American education isn't like that. It's very much classroom learning. It's very little work experience. So there are big differences between education. So I like the idea of practical learning. Most people are visual learners. So just having somebody talk at you may not get the point across.
Yep.
But being able to do something, and learn from that, it makes all the difference in the world. I'd much rather hire somebody who, would essentially have no education but has extensive experience in what they do that's active for my business than hiring somebody with an immense education with no experience.
That's very interesting. I don't know how much familiar you are with what's going on in education, but there is a strong line that is actually changing junior and high schooling, the structure, and start to educating kids with real life projects, and then you learn maths and English, and actually working on the project. So as opposed to be on the classroom, so with a lecture style sort of teaching. So pretty good.
Yeah.
So look, I love these. I love this conversation, Royce. So is being the disruption of the conversation is actually giving that sort of flavor of. I love the flavor of entrepreneurship on it, because we're being resilient and we're being patient, and it goes down, goes up. We hear 6% of the message, but we get the conversation. That has been pretty good. So look, you're going to with the Monarch business. So you mentioned that you're going to US next year. So can you talk a little bit about that future plan?
Yeah, well, I guess one of the strongest charter markets, in the world is the U.S. And I guess the easiest way to kind of look at that is that you have the U.S. and the rest of the world, and they're pretty much equal share. So you have that little part of North America which does equal amount of charter than the rest of the world. So it's very important for us to kind of get to that region, and we can only do so much on Zoom and telephone calls, to get operators interested. But again, it's we've got our foot in the door with the U.S. and we want to keep the momentum going. And the real way to do that is with an in-person visit, or at least a presence in the U.S. So obviously we had plans to go over there in March 2020. We all know what happened at that point. So we've been basically put on hold for about 18 months when it came down to the U.S. market and onboarding of the U.S. market. In the meantime, over the last 6 months, the U.S. charter market, especially in the business sector, has increased by hundreds of percents. They are just on fire at the moment, and it's not as seasonal as the Europe and the UK market is. So Europe and the UK is very seasonal. You get this massive influx of charter in the summer, and then the fall is very, very slow. But then you get probably halfway your summer peak to in the winter for the skiers. The people want to go to the mountains or the Alps. So, it's a very kind of broken market, the same as it is over in it. So, if Melbourne Cup and the Polo Champion occupancy at those venues, so probably didn't see the surge that we expected to see, or that was pre-pandemic. Your Q2, 3, probably your cargo segments, and then back to your business charter in Q4. So, it is a very segmented, market, APAC region and Europe and UK. So it's very important for us to even just have like a good year of solid revenue, is to get the US and kind of have that revenue stream that's very consistent, on top of the amazing efforts that we've done here in the APAC region and Europe and UK.
Very nice. So what's the big dream, Royce?
Oh, the big dream is, but again, it hasn't changed since, anybody would have seen me pitch maybe 4 or 5 years ago. But the big dream is to have private aviation right next to commercial aircraft on a Webjet, Expedia, Mix and Match, or any of those meta-search sites. No membership needed to view it or have access to